Hello. All right. I can hear my because I have
my own feedback
here.
here.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, I can't hear shit, which is fine.
you might
I
have to
have to
plug
plug
your
your
thing
thing
straight
straight
into
into
your
your
computer.
computer.
I am plugged into my computer. I still don't hear anything.
Hello.
Can you hear yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can
I
hear
can
you
hear you
too.
too.
Really?
Tap your
Tap
mic.
tap your mic.
It's coming through me.
It's coming through me.
It's coming through this mic.
It's coming through
Okay.
this mic.
The question is, do we want to keep
The
it that
question is,
way?
do we want to keep it that way?
Because the
Because
feedback
the feedback
doesn't sound as good.
doesn't sound as good.
There we go. That's just you.
Were you able to adjust that? So are we live right now?
Yeah.
Good morning, peasants.
Well, we've been live for 5 minutes. 3 minutes.
Good morning, peasants. We're waiting for an interview. We'll be interviewing Scott Christensen.
So I've just got mine turned off completely, mic and camera, and then that makes it so that your screen
But
goes live because I don't know how else to select cameras.
can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear shit.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me now? Oh, somebody. Yeah, the thing that's cool about Rumble is the live works. That is the coolest thing about Rumble. Hey, is the shutter closed on that? Can you open the shutter? It's right on the down right where your thumb's at more. Right there. Because I like using that camera to look into. We're just playing around here. We're waiting for our participant to arrive. Are you watching for him to hit that link?
Oh yeah, Scott. Allow. Got it.
Perfect. I see him here. Yep. Scott, go ahead and enable your microphone and your camera. We Dim Boys on YouTube. Welcome.
Maybe I'm the only one in the whole world that can't see what's going
Yeah.
on.
We Dim Boys on YouTube. I need you to tell me, can you hear us? We don't know if we can be heard. Can you hear us? Scott, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Can you? Okay, so awesome. So Scott, this is our first time using this technology.
I'm trying to get some lighting going on because it's like dark in my corner. So
Okay.
like a
You
Sith
can hear it.
board or something.
Hold on, Scott. I can't really hear you. Can you talk?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. The problem is I don't want to hear you there. So hold on just a second. I got to and me at the same time. Is that any better?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
everything with you.
Okay, perfect. And I guess I just talk, so I don't get to hear myself. Can you hear? Yeah, that's right. Still not a. What? What are you?
I can hear everything like 3 times.
Okay.
I want to hear nothing to everything.
Okay, I need. Well, Scott, give us just a second here. We're just normally we'd be playing our intro right now, and because we're using Rumble Studio instead of our normal software, which this is pretty cool, but we just want to make sure all of our sound and stuff is good. Okay, we can hear perfectly. Okay, great. So on their end, they can hear. Okay, the audience says they can hear perfectly. Great. Okay. All right, guys. So we're gonna figure out this studio thing because it's pretty slick. But for the moment, we're just we're learning as we go. So everybody, I've got Scott Christensen here with me today. Scott is a fellow J6er from Washington State. He and I have met multiple times in person, and I wanted to do an interview with him because a lot of people, when you hear my story, right, and especially if you go look up my name, you'll see like one picture of me pushing a gate, and so therefore, that justifies a 7-year sentence and everything that happens. And in some people's mind, it's like FAFO, right? Screw around, find out. But in your case, it's a little bit different. You actually had the whole weight of the government come on you because you just needed to find a bathroom. So it's not a story of any kind of close calls with violence or swipes at cops. Not even that at all. Yours is completely different. So I wanted to introduce the world to Scott, and I wanted to just let you tell your story and what led to J6. Just kind of, you've told this many, many times. What is it that you tell people happened? And let's talk about it.
Awesome. Well, and by the way, how long are we going? Or is this just like a Joe Rogan thing where we just go on till we're
Just
out of
go
work?
tell your story. Yeah, there's no real. I mean, we try to get out of here. I got eventually I have to go operate. So I think an hour, 2 hours, 3, whatever. We'll
Right
make it
on.
work.
Well, it all started out with a Christmas present. In Washington State, this more than anything, like there were no Trump rallies going on up here. So we I arranged because Holly, my wife, had really wished that she could have gone to a Trump rally that year, and it was kind of the end, and we were part of the normies. No, I wouldn't call us normies. I mean, we were pretty politically active, and she wanted to have that one last opportunity to go to a rally. So I had no ideas for Christmas, and we had been having a good year in real estate, so had some extra cash, and thought, hey, you know what? This might be a good opportunity. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. I'm just giving Ron a little camera direction and behind the scene. I'm
Okay.
listening.
So I arranged Holly's parents to come into town and watch the girls, and we flew out to Baltimore on January 4th, and got to Maryland, and I had actually interned for Congresswoman Linda Smith in 1997, and so I was living in Frederick, Maryland. So I was interning for a church, and then I had this congressional internship that I was doing. And so we went over to Frederick and had dinner there. We went. We had more times where we're like, hey, what the heck? Let's just go to DC. So we went to DC that night and drove around, and it was late, and we saw Lincoln Memorial, and we went by the Capitol and went by the Supreme Court, walked around, took pictures, and then drove back to Rockville, Maryland, and that's where we were staying in a hotel there. Next day, we woke up and went to Gettysburg. We went to the Arlington Cemetery. Went into DC. It was getting into the evening, and so we kind of went to park the car. Just so happens we were out of is it Lafayette Square?
Yeah, I think so. Right across from the White, or right near the White House.
Yeah. So we went over to the BLM area, and there was cops everywhere there, and I think that's where we didn't see them, but that's where the first sightings of Ray Epps was at. And so when he was like, we got to go into the Capitol, and then everybody started chanting "Fed, Fed, Fed."
Yeah.
But we never saw that. But we were there, so when we saw there was tons of. I mean, there was probably 100 cops just in BLM Square. So we got out of there. It started getting creepy, and people started getting nutty. Nutty, like the BLM guys were getting nutty, And so we're like, this is weird. So we went over to Lafayette Square, and they had a big rally going on there, where there was like uh, Roger, what's his name? Uh, the
BLM
no,
Roger.
Lafayette Square. So they were having a rally there. There was like Alex Jones,
Oh, Roger Stone.
Roger Stone. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're like, oh, dude, it's Roger Stone. Like we were listening. They had some bands, and they had, like I said, Alex Jones got up there, and we saw the back of him, and so it was just so and we were just wandering around, and it was just a big party going on.
Yeah.
And so we actually waited over by the White House. I believe it was that on the 5th. Could have been on the 5th. Anyways, I'm losing track of time. Anyway, and Trump was actually flying in from Georgia because he had just been there for a rally, because that was that whole Senate election that was crazy. So we waited outside the White House and saw Marine One fly over us, and then so we got in the car, went back to the hotel, woke up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and got onto the metro. Took the metro in. This is January 6th, and took it into the Ellipse. And by the time we got there, it was like 6 o'clock, and it was just a mass of people. And
6 a.m.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we waited in like this line that was like wrapped around the Washington Monument, and so we kind of finally we get to our spot at the Ellipse, and we were waiting there forever. We were just shoulder to shoulder with people, and it was tight, and everything was cool. We listened to all the speakers. There was a lot of people speaking, and Trump was late, and so he finally gets up there, does his thing. And now, were you in the Ellipse?
No, I ended up out on the street. I don't know. I think I ended up Pennsylvania Avenue or whatever it was, but between the Washington Monument and the Capitol, I was on the road. So I ended up in that sardine can of people.
Yeah. So and we were just outside. We were on the grass side of the Washington Monument, but there was like a big screen in front of us. So
yeah, we were watching on a screen too. It was like a series of them.
Yeah, and everything was cool. We met a lot of people from, there was like the guy that was standing in front of us, big dude, Bikers for Trump chapter in Minnesota. But it was cool. Everybody was, jovial, and there were people just,
Yeah.
It was
The
chill.
national anthem was breaking out randomly. It was
Right.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, so Trump did his the famous, in a minute, we're going to go peacefully, patriotically to the Capitol, let your voices be heard. And we had heard, like, it was just Holly and I, like, we weren't there with anybody else. Holly knew some people from Facebook that were going to be there. I knew some people from back home that were somewhere around there. One of the guys from my office was there. And so we started, we had heard that there was going to be a part 2, that there was going to be something at the Capitol, that Trump was supposed to be speaking at the Capitol. So we're like, so in our mind, we knew we were going to be going over there. So we started walking that way on Constitution Avenue, working our way there. Again, there was so many people, and it was chill. It was like it was a party. It reminded me of, so we're big Sounders fans, and before every match, you do the march to the match, and you start in Pioneer Square, and you march with all the fans to the game, and chanting, singing.
For people that don't know, the Sounders are that game of football, that thing that kicked that colored ball around. Soccer, yeah, that soccer, that 5th tier sport out there, soccer. So
come on.
That's they have a league here where they pay people, light wages to come. No, yes, soccer is our local Major League Soccer team, the Sounders.
Yes, the only championship football team in Seattle. So, so we we started walking, but it was cool. Like I remember we were walking next to some people that had a portable speaker and they were playing, we're not going to take it from Twisted Sister. I mean, it was fun. We were having a great time, and everybody was having a good time. There was children walking with us. I mean, it was normal. There was no, and so we would get down a few blocks, and I mean, it was packed. And I kind of looked down one of the side streets, and I looked down, and I noticed that Pennsylvania Avenue didn't have hardly anybody. So I look at Holly. I'm like, hey, this next turn, let's go down this street and head towards Pennsylvania Avenue. So we get down there, we turn, and literally there was probably 40, 50 cops that were on the street gearing up in riot gear. And I was like, well, this is odd. So I stop one of them. I'm like, hey, is there something going on up there? Is there like Antifa? And the dude wouldn't answer me. And I'm like, all right, bro, like whatever. So we turn and go to, and sure enough, on Pennsylvania Avenue, it was really chill. So we're walking now. We get a couple more blocks. And there was a guy coming towards us that had pissed his pants, and his face was like, I mean, his face was, I mean, his snot and tears, and I mean, he got tear gassed, and I'm like, holy cow, what is that? And so we keep going down, and we get about a block away from, it kind of like, it all kind of like triangles in towards the Capitol. And we start hearing booms. So we hear boom, 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 boom. And like, what is up? So we get there, and then when we finally see the Capitol, there's smoke. There's and we're like, dude, what is going on? And all the while, you look on the the left side of the street was just full of food trucks. There's people out there getting hot dogs. There's people, I mean, just like you would expect of an event. And so we get up like towards the grassy area, the Capitol building, and then they had that big grass lawn.
Yeah.
There was no fences. there was no bike racks. They were all kind of like, they weren't even toppled over. They were there, but they weren't. It just looked like they were like a normal setup of, that's what it was. So we just are following the crowd, and we go up on the lawn area, and we're like, wow. And we're kind of watching from afar that there was a, massive crowd, that there was all these smoke bombs going off. And so Holly and I are, there on the lawn with the cameras. And so I'm like, Holly, let's get closer to the wall. Let's get past. So we went way up to the wall area on I guess that would be the northwest corner of the building. And we're standing there, and there's people there, and we're just, we're FaceTiming family. We're like, you wouldn't believe this. And we're all of a sudden we see this huge crowd of cops. There's probably, 30 cops running towards us. And one of the cops in the front has this blade, probably a 18-inch blade that he's running with. And whether it was his or somebody else's that he took, and where we're standing, there's a helmet that flew off the terrace there. Stuff. And we look over, and there's like a famous picture of the guys climbing the wall. And it's like the famous picture. And we took that same picture because we were standing right there next to it. And I'm like, these guys are crazy. Like, what are they doing? This is like, you're going to die, dude.
Uh-huh.
And,
so I always joke about you, because you'll see like I don't know if it's you specifically, but there's a famous picture where, some guy's like kind of at the bottom, and he's like USA, like at the wall, and you see the people climbing in the background. It's like, that guy's been arrested. The guys climbing the wall, we don't know who they are.
Right. Yeah. Oh, totally. And so after that, though, there was a huge group of, they were guys with helmets and goggles and gas masks chasing these cops. And so, like, they were kind of like in a train of cops.
That, by the way, is the Antifa element.
Right.
right?
Right.
Because you never hear anybody. If there was a group of MAGA protesters, if they were like, "Here's the Proud Boys chasing cops," I mean, we'd see that footage nonstop. But it doesn't, no, it's not what you. That's not the story you hear ever.
Oh,
You never hear about us chasing cops, and I say us, liberally, but you never hear that. And
No.
so, no,
and that story was weird. There was a lot of weird things that happened. They came running up. They ran past, and there were the cops. And I grabbed I remember there were these two female cops, and they were like dazed and confused. And I grabbed one of them, and I'm like, "You got to keep going, go, 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 go! Like keep running, like go with your buddies, like run with them, run." And so they run past us, and
so you touched a cop.
I did. Oh yeah, I grabbed her. I was like, "You gotta keep running, go, go, go!" I was helping them, right? Which was probably, if they would have known, that would probably have been assault.
Yeah, that'd have been 111A, 100%. Yeah,
And so
would have changed the whole story.
They run past us. So we start following these cops around the building, and we're like hugging the building. Now, one thing that was interesting though, we get around, and there's a power box. There's like on this probably,
Yeah,
7 by
it's a good thing the prosecution didn't hear this, because you say, "Oh, we followed the cops." They just said, "You chased the cops."
right. Yeah, there was a lot that I just kind of.
I did the same thing. I followed a line of the officers up the stairs, and in my mind, I'm like, "Well, they're just backing up so we can take this space." Like,
Yeah.
they weren't saying back, you can't be here. They were just
The cops didn't say anything to us.
coming up the stairs.
They were doing nothing, and then and all the people we were with, they were like us. I mean, they're like, "What is going on? This is just crazy." And when we saw the guys with the helmets and the mask, and we had the same intuition of like, these aren't Trump guys. They weren't wearing Trump gear. They weren't wearing. I think Holly might have a picture of it, but so when we came around the north side of the building, there was a power box, and it had been open and completely like wires had been cut. Really suspicious stuff. Holly took a picture of it, and like, this doesn't look like it should. That doesn't look normal. Anyway, so we go around get to the northeast side of the building, and there was two cops standing by a bicycle rack, and a dude. Now this is where it gets fun, because this is where people like don't know these sides of the story. A guy walks up to him and has a 15-second conversation with these two cops. They turn around and walk off. This guy pushes the bike rack and goes up onto the terrace. And we were like, "Well, that's weird." So we keep walking around, and by that time, again, on the east side, there was no fencing, there was no nothing. There was cops around, but not saying anything to anybody. They were just kind of like just standing there walking, or just loitering. So we go past them, and we're kind of following the crowd, and it's things are chill. There's no fighting. There's no nothing. There's it's just the east side was like touristy people. So we kind of follow everybody. They start going towards the staircase. So we go to the staircase, and we notice people are gathering there. So we're like, "Okay, sure." So we go up to the staircase, and we're there kind of sort of. We must have been there fairly early enough that we kind of got onto the middle of the staircase. More people came, and we were pushed up further up the staircase till we were right about at the second to the last step up onto the east, the Columbus doors. And so the crowd gathered is big, and people were, chanting USA, your typical insurrectionist thing where people were singing the national anthem.
1776.
Yeah. And people were praying, people were saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It was, and as we're standing there, so all of a sudden we look down, and I see these military guys, a huge crowd of military dudes, like 30 of them. And they're making a train, and they're coming in. Well, sure enough, these are like the 3%ers, or the
and they're just doing the shoulder. They're just walking up the stairs,
right,
shoulder to shoulder, right?
Yeah, in full military clad, but It was not the three percenters, but who was the other group? The militia guys, the oath keepers.
Yes.
So it was the oath keepers. But I had no idea. I'm not like a militia guy. I'm not. I mean, I'd heard of the oath keepers and three percenters, but had no idea. So these guys come in, and I'm thinking it's like the National Guard coming in. And so everybody's like high fiving them and patting them on the back, and they come in and they go past us, and they get to the door and they open the doors. So the doors open, and everybody's the famous thing like Brandon talked about is I believe like we heard the same dude saying they've opened the doors. Let's go. Let's go.
Brandon who?
Straka.
Straka, yeah.
And I think at the time he was on the opposite side. So the both of us start, and there was nowhere you couldn't, it was physically impossible to go any direction but towards the doors. I mean, it's hundreds of people all surging into the doors. And so we're like, I guess we're going in. And it was spooky. I mean, it was like, because it was crushing us. I mean, we were getting crushed. And so I turned and faced Holly, and I was backing in, and I'm like, just push me, just keep pushing me, push me. It was like giving birth. And so finally we get towards the doors, and I'm like, push me. And she's pushing me in. And so I went in through backing in. And so we get in, and it was like there was cops everywhere inside. But everybody, so what was going on? I look around, there's people hugging cops. So these are the assaults that are going on. People are hugging cops. People are giving them high fives. I remember there was a cop that was being held by another guy, and the cop was crying. And there was no.
Why do you think that cop was crying?
I have no idea. I mean, overwhelmed with what was happening that day, and people saying, "You need to join us." It was strange. And when we got in, people were again shouting, chanting USA, singing the national anthem, waving flags, no violence, no violence at all. It was peaceful. And you went in there and people are just taking pictures. People are just wandering around. And so by this point, again, we've been holding our bladder since 5 a.m. because there was no bathrooms once you're in the ellipse. And so Holly's like, I gotta go. And I'm like, I do too. So I go up to a cop and I said, hey, is there a bathroom over here somewhere? And he goes, nope, no bathrooms. And I'm like, So again, going back to the 1997 internship, part of my job as an intern was to give tours of the Capitol. But it was 20 years prior to, I mean, it was a long time ago. And I said, well, so we go down one of the side hallways and there's an elevator. I said, well, Holly, I know that there's bathrooms up in the offices. So nobody was going in the elevators. And so I'm like, if we just go upstairs, they've got a bathroom. So we get in the elevator, we go upstairs, and Holly's got the famous quote. She goes, because she's got a video of it. She goes, we get in the elevator, push the 4th floor. She goes, we're going to jail. And I'm like, nah, we're not. They'll never, like, this is too big. This is not going to be a problem. So we go up there, literally go across the hallway. Yeah. Elevator opens. We go across the hallway. I look up and there's a big camera, and it shows me on like all of the FBI stuff, like looking up at this camera. And so we go in the bathroom, and I remember, but hey, it's, we're in the era of wokeness. So I just identified as a woman real quick and went into the women's bathroom with Holly. And we do our thing. Didn't do it. I mean, I even washed my hands and come out, and
wow, what a gentleman.
We go right back down. Actually, we thought like, well, we might want to find a staircase, because if they shut down the elevators or do something weird, we don't want to be stuck inside of an elevator. But we couldn't find a staircase like near the hallway. So I was like, we'll just go back down. So we go back down, come out, and we're wandering around. We went into the rotunda, and sure enough, Simone Gold is there doing her famous speech. on I think it was like Eisenhower statue and inside the rotunda. And so we go over there like, dude, it's Simone Gold, sweet. Because we had been following the watch line doctors and all that kind of stuff. Take our pictures. And John Strand standing there with her. We had no idea at the time. Like I actually, Holly was more of like, she knew who Simone Gold was. And I'm like, all right. And so this is about two, I don't know, 2:13, whatever, the same time, just 5 minutes short of when Ashley Babbitt was murdered. The cops, it was like a switch. Boom. Cops formed a line. They started shouting, telling everybody, it's time to get out. It's time to get out. Time to get out. And also, by the way, so part of my negative media that I was quoted from a police cam said that, and I actually was sitting there chatting with this cop, like having a friendly conversation, joking with him. I asked him, I said, did you serve in the military? Yeah. And I'm like, where did you serve in Iraq? Or he's like, yeah, we're just chatting. And I said, and we're just kind of like, he's like, well, where are you from? Well, I'm from Seattle. And I go, yeah, it's like, we invented this stuff there, and that the media took that little phrase and ran with it. Scott Christensen, violent, whatever, and said that he's from Seattle. We invented this stuff there. And that's the only dirt that they had on me, like saying that I wasn't being a jerk. It was like, I was totally like,
Meanwhile, back in Seattle, yeah,
exactly.
like they're still protesting.
Yeah, the Chaz, going on that summer, and I'm like,
they're doing it this weekend. I mean, they just had arrest this weekend at the Antifa BLM trans mafia showed up to protest against Christians.
Yeah, did
because they were wanting to protect our kids. Yeah,
the Seattle Mariner or the Seattle mayor was talking about how he supports
well, he said that gathering was extreme far right wing fascists or whatever, and he's talking about the Christians. You missed this yesterday. You were going to be shocked.
No,
I'm talking to Ron, co-host here.
Yeah, I'm not on camera and I can't say it, but there's a rally tonight. There's a rally tonight of Christians going to call for Bruce Harrell to resign tonight.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. Well, I'm watching this with bated breath because I'm trying to decide if I should stay in this area. And at a certain point, I'm just like, I mean, I've come to the real. Scott, I went. We've been dragged around to a couple of these Republican events, right? A lot of fun. And now that it's okay to be a domestic terrorist sympathizer, then I guess it's cool to bring us to these meetings. So anyways, at one of these meetings, the people were really upset about development. They were like, oh, they're going to build these, this subdivision, and they're going to have this environmental impact and blah blah, our roads. And I'm like, am I sitting in a conservative? Is this Republican? Like, I couldn't believe. I'm like, this is the exact opposite of what I believe on how we should deal with private property and development. And I'm like, you guys want jobs, but you're making it hard for developers to develop. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, sometimes I wonder if the people that we think are our allies, it's like they're maybe not so much. Like, they actually are okay with certain governing styles. I mean, this is a lot of blue dog Democrats, a lot of people that are, I'm conservative, but yet I vote for the union, and I'm conservative, but I vote for, I don't want this regulate. It's just really weird to me. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about it.
Yeah. We live in a very strange part of the world. Most people don't, they have no idea. Washington's its own thing.
No, it really is. And I mean, you could probably throw Oregon and Washington and Oregon are distinct from each other too. So,
right.
But it is not your normal run of the mill thing. Like going through the prisons, right? I realize a lot of, especially through the Midwest and the South, they've never even seen a transgender outside of the one or two prisoners they dragged in that were transgenders. Like they'd never, to them, it was an internet thing. And I'm like, no, man, they like make my coffee. Like they're all over the place here. It's not 4%. Like we're pushing like 6 or 7%, 8%. I don't know. It's enough that it's like, you can't go to the mall or go to any public gathering without seeing someone that's letting their freak flag fly. And I used to like that about the area, that it was just like laissez-faire, but now I'm like, oh, you're destroying society. So maybe my opinion's changing.
Yep. Yeah. It's and I mean, we kind of have our own little hub in Puyallup. Puyallup is fairly resistant to the Seattle culture. So we still have our good old boys down here, and we're you have
Well,
your people that are trying, but it's like people just roll their eyes and like, you're an idiot. So
well, it just makes you wonder. I mean, we can go down the rabbit holes of elections. Clearly, we all went to January 6th,
yeah,
but it just makes you just go, man, I don't know.
yep, exactly. So back in the rotunda, we were just following order. Like we're like, okay, well, I guess it's time to go. Well, there was like this. It wasn't violent, but the cops were pushing the crowd, and so the crowd naturally pushes back, not pushed back, but just kind of like okay. Holly and I get separated. My backpack flew open, and so I'm gathering all my stuff. There's they're trying to get us out of there. I'm grabbing all of our stuff and I'm putting it in my backpack, and we get separated. She gets spooked because she's not with me, and she's getting like it's and there was it wasn't violent. It was just like they were trying to organize the crowd and getting loud. And so the crowd was like, all right, trying to comply. But they were trying to get everybody to go through the Columbus doors. Well, the problem is the Columbus doors, there was a massive crowd outside the Columbus doors. And guess what they were trying to do? They're trying to
Push
get
in.
in. And so you had this log jam. No one's moving. Holly, one of the cops, she's getting emotional. She's like, I just need to get out of here. Can you help me? And he tells her to sit down over at this bench.
Holly was getting emotional, or the cop?
That Holly was.
Holly
And
was.
so she goes and sits on the bench. There's a big female cop that goes over there and starts yelling at her. You gotta go, like get out. She grabs Holly and pushes her. And the other cop runs up to the other cop, says, no, 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 I told her that she could sit down there. And so he finally grabs Holly and sends her out the side door. So she gets sent out the Senate side door. And so this was the other thing that the FBI was like, how dare you do this? Like, what were you up to, man? And we, like, everywhere I go, if we go to Disneyland, if we go to the Puyallup Fair, I always have carried walkie talkies just as a alternative form of communication in case you get separated. So, the cell phones weren't working. And so I finally contact Holly on the walkie talkie. Heaven forbid, like that was what you were a part of a
Two-way
conspiracy.
frequency devices. Yeah.
You were trying to get a hold of Enrique, weren't you? Like you were. You um, so she said like just talk to one of the cops. Let them they'll take you out the side door. So I walk up to this cop and I'm like, hey, uh, my wife got helped out through the side door. Can I go out too? And he's like, nope, you got to go through those doors. And as a side note, this cop became pretty famous. So he's a well-known cop because he was the guy, and I've got a picture of him and I together on the security cams. It's the same cop that was giving the QAnon shaman guy a
Tour.
tour. He was one of the tour guides of the shaman, the same dude. So, anyways, he's like, no, you got to go through those doors. And I'm like, you can't. And he's like, you got to go. You got to go. And I'm like, how am I supposed to go? And then at the time, guess what the cops were doing next step? They were shooting the pepper balls above the Columbus doors, raining down pepper spray on top of the people that were trying to get out. So guess what the crowd did? They backed up. They're like, what the? So they're backing up. There's no way to get out. So the 47 minutes that I'm in the building, that oh, you were in there a long time, Mr. Christensen. You were about 30 of those minutes were just standing there trying to get out. We had to wait. And I remember I was actually standing next to a oath keeper guy who had a dog. There was a dog. He brought a dog in there. He had like a police military dog just chilling. I've seen it all. And there was children in there. There was little old ladies. I don't know what's happened to the children. I don't know if they've prosecuted the children, but there was just like everybody saw it, and little old ladies. children, dogs.
I haven't heard anybody that brought children that was prosecuted.
No, I
I
know
wonder
that
if that's like the PR nightmare too far. Like
it
that's
is.
clearly not the insurrectionists, but the praying grandma, sure, but not the
I
one
wonder what
accompanied by
happened to
kids.
Like, did they get prosecuted? Because you never hear that. But I
Starts
saw
a whole family separation story. It could get weird.
right, exactly. So
So
finally,
you finally got out.
we finally got out, and I met up with Holly, and we're out there, and we're just wandering around outside. And one of the sad stories, and this is like the only time I kind of got emotional out there. There was this, I would say, 75-year-old man, and he was kind of wandering. And I go up to him and I said, and he was crying. And I go, "Hey man, are you okay?" And he's just like, I just never imagined this would ever happen in my country. And I said, "Well, did you serve?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did 3 tours in Vietnam." And I'm like, "What?" And so we were talking and shared that my great grandfather, was in the Battle of the Argonne Forest and lost his leg in World War I. And we were just, chatting. But it was like this somber moment where this guy was just crushed. And so his buddy came up to him, and they went their way, I went my way, and we were just kind of like wandering out there for a good hour on the east side, and met all sorts of people. And so finally we had heard that Bowser was going to be shutting down the metro. And we're like, well, we probably ought to get out of here. So we go one last time. We go to the west side of the building. Everything had chilled out. All of the craziness was done. And we had literally walked across a MSNBC camera. Like, here goes Scott and Holly walking across the camera, and people back home saw us. And so I started getting texts like, "Dude, we just saw you on
Which just
TV."
goes to show people in Washington watch MSNBC.
Yeah, they love it.
Our
And
friends and family. It's scary.
so the other thing, Taylor's like that happened was, and I got video of it. This dude was standing there and he was crying, and he started saying, "They killed her. They killed my friend." I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "They killed her. They killed her, Roseanne Boylan." And I'm like, and at this point, we had heard a rumor that somebody had been shot. But again, it was just like all this side information. And yeah, so the guy that rode with Roseanne, it was this dude. They rode together from Georgia, and they're like, they killed it. And he was just, and I was like, well, how do I console this guy? And we were like hugging him, and and he kind of wanders off by himself, and we're like, they killed somebody? Like somebody died? And so we're like, no, that's it. How can that even be true? And so we finally said, well, let's get out of here. So we take off. Another little side note thing that happened as we're wrapping around the building, there was a line of, there was a tour of children, like a school tour. And they start like walking towards us, and I stopped the teacher and I'm like, "You don't want to go over there, dude. You don't want to take these kids over there." And he's like, "Oh, it's all right. I do it all the time." So I was like, what is, no, what, you don't want to do that. Anyway,
it's like in the Civil War, they used to line up to just go watch the battles, like, no, let me take these kids. They got to see America. They got to see how the sausage is made. We take them to the Capitol, show them what's really up.
There's the democracy, right? So anyway, so we get on the metro, we go back to the hotel, and just like everybody talks about, you get back to the hotel, we turn the TV on, we're like, holy crap, and what they were saying, and they were just.
And then Holly's like, "We're going to jail."
Yeah, we're like, okay, we had just kind of made a pact between the two. We are not saying anything to anyone. And I had sent a text to my sister because my sister was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is a blast. We're having a great time. My grandpa would be proud of me, And then my my best friend, he sends me a text. "Are you inside the building?" And I go, "Yeah, it's awesome. This is great." And I send him a text back. He's like, "Get the F out of there, dude." So, because they're watching all this stuff back home, and we didn't realize how the media was covering it till we got to the hotel, and we're like, "Oh, dude, And so we
We're in trouble.
yeah. So we go get some dinner at this teriyaki place, and we're just kind of shell shocked, and we're like, what is going on? So the next morning we get up and we're flying out, and so we go to Baltimore, go to Inner Harbor. We're just touring around, get to the Baltimore airport, and there's all these Trump supporters in the airport. Everything's cool. We're taking pictures. I ran into my buddy from the office there, and I was like, what'd you do? And he's like, well, we didn't go in. And I'm like, we did. And so he's like, dude. So anyway, so we get home and didn't say anything. We decided we're not going to tell her parents, that we're just going to keep it like, yeah, we were there. It was crazy, but that was it. And then about a week later, and then my office got a phone call the next day. Scott Christensen, he was there, and how can you let one of your agents be, and I'm like, so my broker contacts me and she said, what did you do anything illegal? I'm like, no, we didn't do anything illegal. Like, no, everything's cool. Like, we're not those people. And so everything, like, we're like, and then we started, I mean, the news was going crazy with it, right? And we're hearing like the FBI, the arm of the law is never forgiving and never forgetful, and we will track down every last person. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be interesting. So about a week later, I go off to the office. I'm not at home, and we get a knock on the door. Sure enough, it's a couple of feds. Yep. And my daughter answers the door. She's like, get off our property. And they're like, well, we just want to ask some questions. She's like, get off my property. And they're like, well, she's like, next time I won't be so nice. And anyway,
this is your daughter?
Yeah.
How old's your daughter?
She was about 18 at the time.
Oh, wow. Spitfire. I like
Oh,
that.
she is. Yeah. Yeah. She
doesn't even know to be afraid.
Oh yeah. She loves it. She would love to, So anyways, but after that, didn't hear a single thing. Like, there was nothing. Like, so we went on, lived our life normal. We had decided that we were getting out of Washington State. So I started floating out my resumes everywhere. One thing led to another. I was hired or there was a church in Boca Raton, Florida that wanted to hire me as their family life pastor. So I'm like, this is awesome. Like, let's get out of here. So we
I gotta stop and make a comment. One of the things you find when you go through the J6 crowd is you don't, it's not like, oh, hey, so I went from this one bar and then I jumped over to this other bar. It's like, this guy's a pastor. Yeah. Right? Like homeschool dads and pastors and like business owners. Like, I mean, we're not the kind of like extreme, these are not the extremists you're looking for. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what this is. Like, oh, did the government target you? What'd you do? It's like, listen, the bigger story here is when I'm upset, when I'm willing to take action, we got a problem.
Yeah.
When your local family counselor pastor is like, hey, you stole democracy out from under our feet. When he's paying attention, it's beyond WWE bread and circus stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, this isn't like a campaign where they called Nixon Hitler. It's like, no, they're like shooting at this guy.
Yeah.
Like, this is life or death.
Yep.
I was explaining to someone last night at a meeting I was at. I was like, when I was in the gulag, people, well, the law this, the law that, and I'm like, guys, we're like one step away from line up against the wall. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't about the law. This is about, it's like, no one cares about us. Like, the only way they care about us is they want to devastate our spheres of influence, because everybody's going to look at me and go, oh my gosh, if they're doing that to Taylor, what will they do to me? Multiple people commented about, well, like, do we even have free speech? Like, they were like afraid to show support for me because will they be targeted next? Like, in America, when you're doing that kind of calculations, insert Cuba, you know what I mean? Like, this is not what normal Americans think. Like, should I support my friend or family who is tussling with the government because they might target me. Like that's normally not the consideration. You know what I mean? But that like, yeah, it's crazy. Like
It
a pastor, you know, like, yeah, this is it. This is your violent extremist, you
Extremist.
know.
Right
So
wing extremist. Yep.
yeah. Now, you know, now your daughter, on the other hand, I mean, at 18,
Oh,
she's already
yeah.
chasing the FBI away. I mean, I don't know what kind of household you're raising there, but
Oh
those
yeah.
are some independent-minded people. Tell you what.
Well, she's a fireball for sure. She still is. But so long story short, we like get this job in Boca Raton,
Train.
and we go to. I leave in like Labor Day weekend. I drive to Florida. Like I get in my car, I drive, and we put our house up for sale. We sell our house finally, and kind of going back and forth. So I was flying to help get our house ready. So I flew back every couple weeks, and something peculiar happened. And this is September of 21. Yeah. So, and I'm checking into my flight, and I'm like, it's not working. It's saying to go to the ticket desk. So I go, this is in Fort Lauderdale, and I go to the airport, and I'd already flown a couple other times, but this one, I'm like, what the heck? And so I get to the counter, and I'm like, it's not letting me check in, like whatever. And I'm like, here's the email. I purchased the flight, and I'm there for like an hour at the ticket desk. Like, what is going on? They're like, well, okay. So finally, after an hour, they give me a paper ticket. And so I'm going over to the TSA, and then they give me a full on, like, that's my first time it ever happened, where they're like, sir, we have to pull you aside for extra screening. And I'd never had this happen, like, ever. And they're doing the full on, grabbing my crotch, and I'm pissed. I'm like, you don't, like, this is not cool. And I am mad. And I'm staring. He's like, don't resist. I'm like, dude, you just grabbed my vasectomy. Like, look, dude, what are you doing? Like, anyway.
So I've always had this, like, I was really anti-Patriot Act when it got passed. Like, even when I was really young, I was like, this isn't right. And or I shouldn't say when it got passed, when I was in college, and which is right after it was passed. And anyways, I was like, this is not right. And so for me, the TSA has always been this thing where it's like, I volunteered to fly, so therefore I've surrendered all my rights. So one time I was flying with a bunch of family, and I got the extra screening, not what you're talking about, the SSSS on the tickets.
Yeah.
But just, hey, we got to open your bag or whatever. And the guy's like, are you okay with me opening bag? I'm like, any rights I thought I had, I knew I left at the metal detector. I was like, open it, like, I was like, I don't like, I've always had that kind of like, what do you do here? Like, I'm not here to hide anything, so just comply. But at the same time, it is kind of it's very invasive. The super screening, I had it one random time, like 15 years ago, just totally random, never before, never after. And they just said, oh, it's just like, you're super lucky today. I was like, okay. So, but then it became, so then when it happened the first time again, I thought, how could it possibly be so unlucky right before a trial? Right. I'm like, I almost missed my flight to my own trial or to a hearing, and anyways, turns out it was a little bit more than that this time around.
Yeah. So that was our first, like, that was weird. But I kind of thought, like, well, it's just, again, you just got the golden ticket. It happens to people. You see it happen all the time. So, but then I get to the gate, and there's like 15 TSA guys there too, and doing the same thing. Everybody on the flight's getting screened. So I finally go through, and I'm like, I get the full pat down again when I get to the gate. And I'm like, this is weird. And then so fly to Seattle, whatever, fly back again. And then sure enough, it happened again. And I'm like, this is weird. So I finally started putting two and two together, and I go, what is this SSSS thing on my ticket? So I Google search it, and it's like, you're on the Safe Sky, or the Safe Skies list, and here's what it could mean. Here's why you'll never get it off. And I'm like, oh, dude.
You're done flying.
Yeah.
That's what that
And
means.
then,
Flying
so
becomes so inconvenient you can drive halfway across the country in the amount of time it takes you to get through screening.
exactly. So we, and sure enough, Holly's on it too. And I'm,
I
oh,
just want people to understand. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, you're good.
The invasiveness and the time delay it takes to go through the screening changes your calculation on travel.
Yep.
For example, for me to drive to Boise, right, it's only a financial cost. If I'm taking my whole family, or if it's just me, because it's 8-10 hour drive from where I'm at. Is it worth driving to the airport, getting on right? But it always makes sense time wise. It's always a question of money wise when you're traveling with family and kids. So that's the calculation. Well, now the time for me to get on an airplane goes from I got to get to the airport an hour early to I need to get to the airport 7 or 8 hours early.
Yeah.
So it's the whole, I may as well just drive. Like there's no, when you factor in 16 to 20 hours of just airport time to get through the security and the potentiality that you can't get your ticket and all the
Right.
stuff that goes along with that. It's like, good gravy. I could basically drive to Colorado before it's worth trying to get on a flight.
Yeah.
It gets to be really stupid.
Yeah. And you never knew, is it going to take, 'cause sometimes it would take like 35, 40 minutes. Other times it would take an hour. That when we were in, I went
At
to
each stage, like to get my ticket, it might take me 2 or 3 or 4 hours. And then you've got the other issues too. Like, when I was flying back from prison, I was still on the list. And so I'm in Kansas City and the Alaska Airlines counter doesn't open up till noon. And my flight's at like 1:15 and I got there at, 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. and I'm standing at the counter, like calling all the helplines. Like, listen, you're going to have to call Homeland Security. You might have to call the president himself to get me on this flight. Like, you're going to need time. Like, we're asking him, can you call someone in early? Because I'd been through the rigmarole before and just the delays on how many phone calls they have to make to print your boarding pass.
And they don't know
a flight. They don't care.
These ticket counter people have no idea. They're not used to it.
No.
And so they have no idea what to do. And I'm like, so then I started to coach them. I'm like, you're going to have to call I'd go up to the counter and say, I need to have a manager here. So I'd have to wait, 20 minutes for a Alaska Airlines manager to show up. And I'm like, I'm on the SSSS list. And they're like, they'd look at me and I'm like, and what I would always say, here's what you would love this, Taylor. I'm like, yeah, I'm a pastor. And so I'm on the terror watch list because I'm a pastor. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. Biden's doing now. Like Biden's putting all of us conservative.
You're just
like,
poisoning the well.
Serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just a pastor, Boca Raton, and that's what they do to us now. And I said, rabbis, whatever it is, we're all on that list. And they're like, no way. I wouldn't tell them what, I hadn't been accused of anything. I hadn't been, there was no.
So you were on the no-fly list before you got arrested.
Oh yeah, way before.
Okay.
Way before. Wow. So here's the other funny thing, because even if, like you said, if your children are traveling with you, if they're your credit card, they're on the SSS list too.
Yeah.
So my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter would get the full pat down as well. And that, enraged.
It's not just a full pat down. It's opening up your suitcase, going through every article of clothing, taking out the liner of your suitcase, going through your electronics, swabbing everything. It's not just an extra pat down. It's not that at all. It's multiple very invasive screenings, going through everything. Hands on everything, changing out gloves, testing their gloves. Like on our way home, my wife has in fact, I think she has just, like a memory stick. External hard drive that she, kind of has all the family documents and stuff. And, it swabbed positive for explosives. So she's like, what do we do here? I'm like, well, we can't, you're literally talking about like family photo albums and stuff. And we had to check the bag, like they allowed it. And maybe we were lucky that they even allowed it in a checked bag. I'm like, nobody thought it was really explosives. They x-rayed it, but it's swabbed. So it's like, there's no wiggle room when you're on the SSS list. And then the other thing too, is you're getting followed by marshals.
Yes.
Right?
And we start figuring out later, like that was later that we started like noticing this dude, he's a spook.
What an utter waste of resources.
Oh yeah.
What an utter waste of resources.
And we started having fun with it. Like I would do I would literally minimize myself. Like I would wear a tank top because we're going to Florida. I'd wear a tank top. I had a light jacket for the plane. I'd wear shorts and flip flops. So like it would expedite my, and then I would only take, I would start bringing a gallon, like you do for the Seahawks games or the Sounders games, a gallon size bag that had my keys, my phone, and that was it. And that's all I would take on the plane. I
Just
mean,
walk
nothing.
around that.
I
Not
kept
me,
my
man. It was trench coats with like, foam toys in it,
right. So I kept it
fake
like bare
swords. No.
minimum. And but like so we went to a so this is later on anyway, but so all of that, I went to a soccer tournament and they literally screened team my whole team because
Yep.
I was on the ticket, and so I contaminated everybody. And what we were afraid of is like, because the SSS list, once you're on that list, you're stuck there. Doesn't matter who you are, who you're feeling, you're going to be stuck on. I'm like, did I just contaminate my whole
Apparently we're off it now. But I think
Oh,
that
yeah,
it
yeah.
took intervention with Tulsi Gabbard and Christy Noem to do that.
Well, it took Holly being Holly. So Holly and I, the funny thing is like we're totally different personalities. Totally. She's a very direct, she's very like, and I'm Mr. Friendly with everybody. I'm making friends with
Uh-huh.
everyone. And no, she doesn't tolerate it. And we later on during the FBI interviews, she goes, okay, after her interview, which I was nervous about. I'm like, Holly, you gotta play their game. Like you gotta do reverse psychology on these guys and just be like super nice to them and tell them the how.
You're negotiating with a Sicilian when death is on the line, man. What are
Right,
you doing?
right. So we're like, so when she went into her FBI interview, she goes, "Did you guys put us on the terror watch list?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, that was us." She's like, "You could go ahead and take us off now." And this was like before pre-trial or anything, and he's like, we'll look into it." And but sure enough, like 2 weeks later, we fly in Florida, and we're not on we're not on the terror watch list anymore. We're like, holy cow, this is amazing! Like we just were given our freedom back. Like it was nuts. But yeah, it was Holly that figured out it was the FBI that stuck us on that.
Oh
And so
yeah.
anyway, so we're flying back and forth. We moved to Florida. Nothing weird is happening other than the terror watch list. Nothing is happening. And then, but while we were living there, we couldn't find housing because 1,000 people a day at that time were moving to Florida. So you couldn't buy a house, you couldn't rent a house. We were borrowing this double wide trailer in a really bad neighborhood, and we just decided our girls were miserable. We're like, well, look, this isn't working out. We're going to go back to Washington. So we pack everything up. We head back to Washington, move back to Puyallup. Everything's fine, nothing weird. And on December 7th, 2022, I get up, take a shower, go. I have a meeting at my office in Tacoma, go start driving off, and I'm going down. I'm 5 minutes away. All of a sudden, I get this phone call from Holly, and I'm like, "What does she want?" Like, she never calls me. Like, so I pick it up, and I hear her yelling, "The FBI's here! The FBI's here!" And I'm hearing all this chaos in the background. I'm like, "What?" They're like, "They're here! They're here! They're here!" So I turn the car around. I go back, and sure enough, our lawn was full. There was 20, 30 plus FBI, U.S. Marshals, Puyallup PD, all there. And so I pull in, they run up to my car, they grab me. And so and I'm like, and I'm, again, in my mind, I've already rehearsed this 100 times. I'm like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to be like a lamb to the slaughter. I'm going to be quiet. They throw me up against the garage, and Agent Michael Kiley.
I had the same agent, by the way.
Yep. Yeah. He's an interesting cat. He says, so he tells me, we're here because of your involvement in the riots on January 6th at the Capitol. And so I'm just like, he reads me my Miranda rights. They put me in handcuffs. They put me in the ankle cuffs, and I'm out there. Now we live literally across the street from,
Which, by the way, is totally inappropriate. Like, you see everybody get arrested. It's just handcuffs, go sit in the cop car. To shackle you with the wrist and ankles on the
Yeah.
street on a pullover for misdemeanor charges. This is
Yep.
out of the world. This is
Oh,
nothing we have ever seen that I know of is like that ever.
well, and
Even,
later on,
I mean, even your mass murderers, you know, that get arrested don't get treated like that. It's, I mean, that like your
sure.
MS-13 gang members don't get treated. They just get arrested and thrown in the back of the car.
Yep.
If there's
Sure.
the potential of calling them and asking them to come in, that's always the preferable way to do this.
Yep.
100%.
We never got a phone call. We never. The only other time was when they came to our door and encountered Jillian, our oldest daughter, and that was it. That was the only other time. They never tried to contact us. So but the backstory to that is like when they came in. So Holly's sitting there at the kitchen table, and like I said, we literally live across the street from a junior high. So there's buses. Just at that time is 8 a.m. They started pulling, and so in front of the junior high, this whole charade, and we're in a downtown neighborhood, and the neighbors have all come out of their houses. The school, and they had taken my daughter, 15-year-old daughter, and she's on the street corner, and the junior high that she had gone to, 2 years before, and there's teachers, there's people that are all like, what is going on there? Like, what is happening? But my Holly was sitting at the kitchen table, and boom, 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 they're banging on the door. And she had noticed, like, kind of on her periphery, there's all of these men, like, in front of the window. And there's a guy with a, AR-15 pointed straight out, open the effing door, over. He's screaming, cussing at her. And so she's like, what is going on? Our dogs are going berserk. And she goes to the door, opens the door, and they're like, get outside, get outside, get outside. And they're like screaming. They storm the house. And my daughter comes out of her bedroom. They're pointing guns at her. They're like, get the dogs, get the dogs, get the dogs. And so Lola grabs the dogs and put them in our bedroom. And they're going berserk. They're 2 Australian shepherds, so they go nuts no matter what. I mean, when they see the postal carrier, they go berserk. They freak out. And so anyways, they storm the house. They put Lola and Holly outside, and they by the time I pull in, they grab me. Holly was already standing next to the U.S. Marshal's car, and we're looking at each other, not saying anything. And they haul her off, and so they take me. They take my laces out of my shoes. They do all this stuff, and they stick me in the back of a car and drive us off. And we're like, what's going on? I was able to make one phone call to my office mate, who I'm like, Danny, I'm like, the FBI is at my house. And he's like, what? No, come on. Well, you're messing with me. I'm like, no, dude, I need you to come pick up Lola. And he's like, you got to be kidding me. So he swings around, comes back, and picks up Lola. He talks to Michael Kiley. And Michael Kiley's like, I feel so bad because we didn't know that Lola was going to be here. And, we didn't expect that because she was home sick from school. And anyway, the whole thing goes down. We go to Tacoma. We're there for about 8 hours.
He doesn't feel bad, by the way.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no. He was looking forward to his bonus on his pension. And so so we get down there to courthouse. We're stuck there all day. And finally, about 3:00, our whatever it is, local attorney from Tacoma wanders in there and starts reading me the indictments, the four misdemeanors. And
okay, I've teased this. We've talked about this. Battle rattle on your front lawn. AR-15s pointed in your windows and at your property and at your house. Shackled up on the side of the road. Arrested both husband and wife. Okay. All of this.
Take away your laces so you don't
take away your laces so you don't commit suicide or strangle an officer.
I don't.
Right? All of this
to,
as a net result of 4 misdemeanor charges. Okay, 4 misdemeanor charges. A good portion of our audience has committed felony trafficking violations. Okay, this is not. We're not talking about anything sane here. This isn't This isn't someone who you can clearly connect with organized crime. This isn't someone who, now they've been through your bank accounts. They've been through your social media accounts. They've been through your telephone communications, and they've created all the Venn diagrams of circles of people you're involved with, et cetera, et cetera. There is
records, criminal history.
Yep. They've been through your criminal history. They've been through your postal records. Okay. They've been through everything that they can peel through. I'm sure they've been through your medical records. Okay. They commercially buy up any kind of marketable data on you, which creates an avatar profile of you that could fool me. Right. And
Right.
you know what I mean? They know everything.
They know
They-
everything about you.
They did all of that for 4 misdemeanor charges.
Yeah.
Like, there was cocaine in the White House.
And they
There
were
was cocaine in the White House, and they're like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like,
nothing.
there are rape kits sitting untested, right? There is so much to be done. And they dedicated all of that time and effort for someone who went pee in the public restroom in the Capitol,
Yeah.
right? Who used a walkie-talkie at the Capitol. Like, the construing into an offense that would warrant that. When that Kylie guy's like, oh, we felt bad, your daughter shouldn't be here. He's about to separate you talk about family separation from the border.
Right.
It's an offense to cross hey, they committed a crime. Oh, it's just doing my job. These people are out of control. All cops are bad cops, because if there were any good cops, there wouldn't be any bad cops. And I don't mean that as a pejorative to the individual cops. I'm just saying, you're broken. It's a broken system. How you can get to the point to where a rational person, an adult human being, like the FBI agent, who was a former Marine, by the way,
Yeah.
who allegedly went and fought and died, to drink when he came to my house, the partner that's replacing him, by the way, was like, well, we had to do it because they were trying to overthrow the government with an insurrection. Told my wife that. The new FBI agent replacing this Goomba that just left, right, that went after us, is completely bought and sold on the fact that there was an insurrection and that Donald Trump just pardoned a private army. Like, that's the FBI's official position at the local Tacoma outpost they have here. Like, so we have to recognize you're not dealing with people who, it's an ideological mind virus. It's a mental corruption. Some of these people, yes, they're playing for a pension. They're not playing for truth or any kind of moral standard. They have no North Star. They completely don't know what to trust or who to trust. I mean, think about the biggest purveyors of misinformation is the government itself, and these people work for it. I had a CO one time said his dad gave him some advice. It says, better to be the left hand of the devil than stand in the way of his right. And that's what his perspective was of working for the government. He's like, I'd rather be the left hand than be in the path of the right. You know, and this is so misdemeanor charges.
Yeah. Well, and
misdemeanor charges.
I've told you, you've heard this story before too. So it's December 7th in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. I don't know how cold it was.
It's chilly.
It's in the morning.
Chilly.
So Lola's out in the front yard with no shoes, no socks, bare feet, out there for about 30, 40 minutes as they're clearing the house and going through. You know what they're looking for, right? They're looking for a U.S. national team scarf. They're looking for a Trump flag. They're looking for a Donald Trump beanie that Holly was wearing and her jacket. And they're looking for the walkie-talkies. They could never find the walkie-talkies. So, but they were looking for my U.S. men's national team jersey that I was wearing, and that's what they were looking for. I mean,
so I avoided the house raid because I called him and we met, and I was like, yeah, that's me, and I gave him my phone. So he's like, oh, like that satisfies the warrant. I was so early on, they didn't have their feet under him in Washington yet. Like, I don't know if they'd arrested anyone. I think Ethan Nordine and I were arrested on the same day. And I turned myself in, right? So I avoided the whole raid thing. Like, they told me we were going to do this, but you called us first, right?
And
so,
which is fortunate because some people did the same thing as you and still got raided.
Yeah, I know. There were a lot of people that like actually had their attorneys talking to the government and still got raided. They were like, "We'll show you the beanie." Like, I'm not opposed to giving you the beanie. If you show me a warrant saying you can take the beanie, I'll go get it. There were other inmates, and they probably did the same thing to you. They did the X-rays on the walls, looking for guns, and I mean the amount, like, fruit of the poisonous tree. The amount of things they were just looking like. What?
Yep, that's what they were
looking
looking
to a pastor's house, like, you know, the invasiveness, the shame of having your house raided like that. Like, these were misdemeanor charges. I mean, this is like, we're talking like a fine territory. So you get indicted. You meet the magistrate judge. You didn't spend the night in jail or anything, right? This was in
No.
and out in the day. And then so at that point, obviously you hire an attorney, and what happens there? So kind of fast forward a little bit.
So
Tell
yeah,
me.
well, one more point was that so Lola's out there in the freezing cold. They allow her to come back in the house, and she's in her pajamas, and she's like, can I change my clothes? And like they said, well, and they waited, they debated about it, and they're like, okay, you can change those clothes. So she goes in her room, and there's 3 FBI officers at gunpoint, and Lola says they had their guns drawn as she's undressing in front of them, down to her underwear, and putting on clothes. And so at gunpoint, she's forced to change clothes in front of them. She's, a minor, not involved with J6. And so they escort her back outside where she gets picked up. Anyway, so that was that whole thing.
This is like Gestapo. I mean,
It is.
when I was a kid and they would made us read these novels about, Netherlands, or like people in Denmark when the Germans were coming in. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the Italian Mussolini and his crew were
Right.
doing. I
Well,
mean, this is like just
the point.
brute intimidation. And then we're debating: should we let her change? Should we let her change at all?
14-year-old.
I mean, what?
Yeah.
Hey, in like 8 minutes, you guys are going to leave here. She's not in custody. You're going to let her walk in the house and change her clothes. Like, what purpose did they have other than this? We're here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like she's not in trouble. You're going to relinquish this house in like 6 minutes because you're hauling all of us. Oh, what's going on? Hold on just a second. Oh, my computer's not plugged in. Gotta have power. But, in like 6 minutes, they're going to release you from custody and you're going to go back to your house. But for this moment in time, it's a disaster zone and it's a crime scene and your daughter can't change her clothes. And, oh my gosh. And it's like, but, we'll sit here and like the fact that you're debating this.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. All of that effort. And in 8 seconds, the judge is going to go, all right, we'll see ya.
Yeah.
And you're going to go back to your house and without a beanie and without a jersey, which you would have readily said, yeah, that's me in the video. Like, this
Right.
isn't an issue of, you know what I mean? Like, this is an abuse of the process. And these people that execute this, like, they're debating on whether they should let the 15-year-old unaccused, near adult, sentient, competent daughter of the person whose house they're going to let them return to.
Yeah. It blows your mind. And going again, these people, because people are like, well, the FBI, they're good. They're the good guy. And it's like, okay, let's just back up. But let's go back to Nazi Germany. And I'm sure, as much as we all would agree and say, no, Adolf Hitler, Nazi Germany, bad dudes. But there
Who
was
will deal with the pedophiles if not for the Gestapo?
right. And
That's basically what I hear in my ears.
there was certainly some good men a part of the SS. I mean, we're talking about guys that were, bakers and candlestick makers and loved their families and were faithful fathers and husbands. There were some good guys in the SS. I'm sure there were. They weren't all bad, And my thing is, all of these dudes and dudettes.
Let me stop for a second. I'm very careful to make these comparisons because clearly people on the other side of the partisan aisle say, "Oh, ICE is Gestapo," right? Yes, there isn't. Listen, when you're getting your house raided, it's very difficult. Now, if you're looking for like mass murder implements, this house raid seems totally justified. If you're looking for, I don't know, things that easily go disappear, like bags of drugs and things like that, it makes perfect sense. But you're talking about someone who just walked into the Capitol. Like, they're not even being alleged to have committed any kind of violence or be a part of any greater conspiracy. Like, so, I guess the policy is we just use the misdemeanor as a foot in the door, and then hopefully they were going to find something on your laptop. Yeah. It's like, what's the point of this? Like, my crime wasn't an electronic crime. Why are you asking for my electronics? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I understand the mentality, like anybody who's persecuting us is the Gestapo or whatever. But it's like, no, the reason that the Gestapo stands out in history and the reason the SS stand out in history is these were above and beyond. The mission of these organizations from its surface, a reasonable moral person would go, oh, that's weaponized. Oh, that's against its own citizens. Oh, that's enemies of the state. What does it even mean to be an enemy of the state?
Yeah.
Right? Like, who are the, like, the state is the people, but yet the enemy of the state is consistently who? The people. Right. And at the SS, at least they claimed a foreign enemy, like,
Yeah.
but point is, like, they stand out because it's above and beyond. I wonder with the American FBI, like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, I had an FBI agent who went on a camping trip. Sometimes I wonder if he was trying to be a handler or not. I don't know, but it seemed really sincere. Put our phones down. We went for a walk and we talked about corruption in the government and how even if he sees a crime, he can't really do anything about it because he can't like investigate his bosses. Right. And he was saying that there's really nothing that he sees the FBI doing that the marshals can't do. He's like, why do we have a redundant force? And it's like, well, because you're the arm of the prosecutor. You're the prosecutor's law enforcement. The marshals are actually like cops. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like, in my mind, it's like how many kidnappings have actually been solved by the FBI that really weren't just solved by local police departments that were given the search database the FBI has.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think they offer these really great tools to local departments for joint task force and whatnot. But when it comes to the actual FBI itself, like, basically they're good at like financial fraud and blackmail.
Right.
Like I don't really understand their mission or purpose. That's the thing. It's like the comparison to say, oh, they're Gestapo. Like, I'm not trying to do what AOC does and be like, ICE is KKK or something. Like, I'm not trying to make a false comparison. I'm trying to say, no, really, like, I lived through this and I know people like you lived through this. Like, this is not the normal behavior of your local sheriff's department. This is not the normal behavior of a police department. This, like, even when we accuse police of like excessive brutality, usually it's like, well, criminal with guns and shootout and drugs. Like, there is an element of like, yeah, these guys are really on the other side. They don't deserve defense. We're talking about a pastor.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I'm a homeschool dad, local business owner. Like, we're not talking about people that normally you would need to respond with that type of, or I mean, we're the type of people who take seriously the letters from our HOA and show up in traffic court to, you know what I mean? To face our accuser and apologize to cops and pay, you know what I mean? Like, we're the kind of people that like go above and beyond. Like, I never use the court system. I'm not litigious, like I try to avoid that stuff at all costs. And so to be wrapped up in something like this is like, dude, you could have just sent me, like, I show up for jury duty, like I'll show up for jury duty. You think I'm not going to show up to a subpoena or a court summons? Like, of course I would. So the idea that they would treat us that way it is like, yeah, you've stepped into Gestapo land. Like, at the end of the day, they knew when they woke up in that morning to organize a raid on your house that it was going to result in 4 simple misdemeanor charges.
Yeah. Well, and again, how they stacked all the charges against all of us, and whether or not it was the felonies or whatever, their whole point, none of them wanted to go to trial. That was always made very clear. Like, we don't want to take you to trial. We want you just plead. Just all you have to do is plead to this one and we'll be good. Like, that's just it. Let's just plead. And that's what they knew. I mean, with all of us, especially us, the smaller fish, we were the final, what guys in our category all settled and pleaded because they scared you and said, if you don't do this, this is the coercion that they make you say, well, I wasn't coerced, but what else? When you have a gun at your head and you're like, yes, I'll say whatever it is that needs to be said. And they're like, if you do, you're going to jail for 3 to 5 years. If you go to, if we go to trial, you're going to be sentenced to 3 to 5 years. And they were right. If those guys that went to trial, they got punished for a picketing, parading, and demonstrating in a Capitol building. And usually that, again, and by the way, my conversation with Michael Kiley months later, after everything was said and done, after the pardon, an hour and a half conversation with Michael Kiley said that for the first time in FBI history, first time that they have ever been told to go after misdemeanors. They don't go after misdemeanors.
And it doesn't even raise their level of care or awareness.
Yeah, they're trained in their training when they go to their little school that they don't do misdemeanors. They just go after felonies. That's it. But on this case, they were directed and told, because Michael was spilling his guts to me about, like, I'm not a bad guy. I promise I'm not a bad guy, because they knew, because they were told, oh, by the way, after the election, they were told at the Tacoma field office it's a very good idea for you guys to get transferred out of here because they're going to come after you. The
Is
DOJ
it
is
going to be a bloodbath? Yeah.
and they told them. So guess what Michael Kiley did? He put in his transfer vote, and guess where he's at today? He's not in Gig Harbor anymore where he's living.
New Jersey.
He is in New Jersey.
Yep. Just
And
one corrupt state to another corrupt state.
And probably hiding underneath one of those little tables inside of a, just trying to keep it on the down low so he can keep his job.
Alina Abba is the U.S. attorney over there now.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, I collected all 26 names in my discovery of every agent, every prosecutor, and I've submitted them like a pit bull to every human being. I even sent it as soon as Dan Bongino was hired. I Spokioed his information, found about 10 email addresses for Dan, and I emailed that list to him immediately as soon as I found out he got hired. But I've sent them to Ed Martin. I've sent any person that I can find. I will. I mean, I was just as diligent as the FBI on finding these people's information. I've got my prosecutor's cell phone number. I've sent her messages saying, hey, oh, by the way, I need your email address so I can forward your information on to Pam Bondi. She's been fired. Like, she's gone.
Yeah, my prosecutor fired and then went on TV.
Carolina Nevin, gone. She has disappeared off the fix. I can't find her because trust me, I've found her on Facebook. Anything that I can find these people on, I find them. And trust me, it's like I'm not gonna like let loose of that bone. So
are these people partisan when you find their social medias and stuff like that? Do you find that they're partisan on their social medias?
100%. Yeah, even Michael Kiley, he's putting Ukrainian flags on his profile. I don't know why he even has a profile. It's bizarre. And so you can Google search Michael Kiley, and he's got all of his information there. And you could go all the way back to like 2015 and 16, where he's making derogatory comments about Donald Trump in his Facebook. It's like
this, guys. Like, I've had this. It's just normies, right? The normies, the family members, the people that interact with it are just like, I don't understand. Like, why is this such a big deal? Like, why you must have done something, and it'll work itself out. The thing that drove me crazy was people before I went to trial are like, well, justice, it's a good thing we live in America, and I'm like, yeah. You guys, I've been black-pilled. I got a degree in political science, right? So at some point I realized that America is not what we say we are. And that was early on for me in life. Like, it's what caused me not to join the military. It's what's caused me to be a business owner, not, subservient to the system, so to speak. It's why we homeschool our kids. It's because it's like, I don't want to participate in this system beyond what I have to. And so to all of a sudden be here and be like, either we bring about what we think about, and it's like the government proved to me to be exactly who they are. Like you said, here's Kiley making overt political statements, and these are overt political cases. Like, it's just, my judge, you're going to go to prison for a long time when this is all over. Before we have a pretrial hearing, before one piece of evidence has been placed before the court, any of that. It's like, judge, that's judicial bias. Like, just dismiss the case right now, reassign the case. No, I'm not doing that. It's like,
right.
Only in America would we fight and bleed and die to defend this system. And then the moment we're entrapped by it, we realize what it really is, and we don't understand why we're doing that.
Yep.
People fight and die for things like a speedy trial. Why did my trial take 1,000 days to get to? People
right.
fight and die for your right to speak freely, but yet the first thing you do is you place a self-imposed gag order on yourself when you get in trouble like this. You have a right to remain private and remain silent when faced with authority and asking questions. But yet, what's the first thing we do? We waive our right to remain silent. We hire an attorney to speak for ourselves, and it's like we have a right to speak for ourselves. We hire a liar to do all the talking.
Right.
It's like everywhere we need our rights, we turn around and we hand them over. We don't know what they are. We don't know how to impose them. They've mastered the tricks of taking them from us. They overcharge you to coerce you into a plea deal, which then means you're not having any form of a trial, right? Like, why didn't they just hit you with one simple misdemeanor? Why'd they hit you with 4? And clearly we know, like, on our end, we know it was packaging. Like, it's the 4 misdemeanor package. You got hit with 4 charges if you got hit with 1, unless you're Ray Epps, in which case you got hit with 1. But he's the only guy who got 1 single charge, right? Everyone else, if you got misdemeanors, it was 4 misdemeanors
Yeah.
because that created the bargaining tool. It's the same thing with everything else. They wanted people to plead to the 1512 or the 111, 1512, 111A, and then they would drop the misdemeanors. Why did you drop the misdemeanors? This guy's over here pleading guilty to the misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Like it's all bargaining. It's all coercive. It's the truth is irrelevant. Facts are on the moon. And until you do this, you don't recognize it. I think, why is there an amendment that says they can't quarter soldiers in people's houses? Why is that there? Think about that for a second. Because it actually happened that the British came to the Americans. And by the way, Americans did this too. George Washington quartered soldiers in people's houses.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, here you are. Hey, you think it was bad having your 15-year-old daughter for 1 minute have to undress? Imagine, 2 privates sharing a room with her.
Right.
Or imagine, hey, I got to go to work, but these 2 sloughs right here, I don't know that I really want to leave them in the house alone with my wife and daughter. Oh, guess what? Got to go to work. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why we have don't quarter soldiers in your house. There's a reason why we have an amendment that says you should be secure in your person's papers and things, right? It's because until you're not secure in your person's papers and things, and they say things to you, they're like, oh, we were looking at your iCloud, and you're like, oh, you were?
Right.
Yeah, they got that subpoena before we talked to you. So we were just, checking that out. And oh, that's interesting. I share all my passwords with iCloud. Yeah, we got into your bank too.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Did you get that from Treasury? Doesn't really matter, right?
Well,
think about that for a second. Like, it's like, oh, I guess I should probably keep my shit on lockdown a little better. I don't even know where to go with why do people fight and die for these rights if we don't have them, enforce them, or impose them at all?
Yeah.
And the people that take them, these law enforcement, FBI type, Gestapo, I don't know. You're not going after criminals. I don't know what to do here. And if you think I'm a criminal, then we have such a difference of opinion. I don't know that we're living in the same country.
Yeah. Yeah. And so on the picketing parading charge historically, because what people mistitle things, because people throw, well, it was a trespassing. No, it's not a trespassing. We weren't trespassing because in order to get a trespass legally, you have to have written notice that you've been trespassed, right? So if you go into the mall and do something naughty in there, then they can trespass you and say, you cannot come back here again. And once you have that trespass, and if you go back there, you've been trespassed, then you're in trouble, right? So on the picketing parading charge, this happens all the time in the Capitol building. It's happened throughout the decades of people going in there. And even in the rotunda, if you go in there with your church group and you were to grab hands and say, let's just have a prayer together and let's pray inside the rotunda for our country. That's picketing, parading, and demonstrating. You will be cited for that offense. If you go in there with your junior high choir and sing the national anthem randomly, no, that's picketing. You're not allowed to do that. So it's the same charge. And even with the Palestinian guys that have gone in there multiple times into Senate hearings and the congressional hearings, and they go and they protest, that's picketing, parading. And what happens to those people is the police will grab them, say, okay, please show me your ID. They give them their ID. They write out a citation. 2 weeks later, they get the same charge, Taylor. They get a citation in the mail, like a red light ticket, for $50.
That's what I expected. That was what I expected in this process. I expected to get the $50 welcome to DC protester ticket.
Yeah, exactly. And that's now if you don't sign it, then they can, prosecute you, which they never do. They never do. According to my attorney, they never do this. They never go after these people. So you get a $50 fine in the mail for picketing, parading, and demonstrating inside of a Capitol building. Happens all the time. All the time. It's a petty misdemeanor. And I pulled this up. So I've got this on a 15-page docket that says, can you read that? Table of federal misdemeanors. And this is a table of all the same petty misdemeanors, 15 pages, from everything from flying a kite in a national park or having an unleashed pet is a petty misdemeanor. The same exact punishment, up to 6 months in prison and a $5,000 fine, right? How many of those actually get prosecuted? None. Over time. The sale, putting a postage stamp or sorry,
Which, by the way, people don't recognize, but when it has that, the max fines, that they do get paid that. They get the bonds. Those create bonds. So
Right.
you get a $50 ticket, but the government actually gets the $5,000 per offense. So people do not understand how the court system is actually funded and how that all works. You do find that out. Like your prison sentence, if you end up going prison wise, but you basically take the amount of time you serve, times it by 45 grand, and it will be typically within a couple percent of what the total fines are. And but you add up the years, it's a 30-year sentence, but you got 7 years. It's like, well, yeah, because with inflation and everything, the bonds, they can't actually keep you in prison for 30 years at that amount of fine. They create them. It's a bonding document. Anyways, so you ended up hiring an attorney and you fought this thing. Now, how much did you pay for the attorney? What was the end result after you took a plea deal?
So we had already kind of preemptively, like, just because of who I am, I reached out to a public attorney in Tacoma, and kind of a hotshot attorney. And this was right after J6. I'm like, okay, can I come in? I need to talk to you. So I go in, and he said, he's like, look, until they actually do something to you, don't worry about it. If they come to your door, don't say anything. Then you contact me after that happens. So when that happened, I contact them. I'm like, they pinched me. And he goes, okay, well, here's the deal. He said, I don't have any experience of what goes on in DC. He said, your best bet, my recommendation is that you go with their public defender, because their public defenders they're already in the trenches and they know what they're doing. So I took his advice. So Holly and I both got we got separate public defenders. And so Holly's was actually really good. Robert Jenkins. And he, ironically, he was a Black Lives Matter attorney. So he defended, and he was on like freaking every new, I mean, he's been interviewed on Fox and MSNBC, and I mean, he's good. He was very good to Holly. My guy was not Peter Cooper. He was actually from England, so he had an English accent, and he was just
registry.
Yeah, exactly. So he was just, I mean, he wasn't very helpful. I mean, there would be like, I literally would type up like my just stuff, like just, I was on it. Like I was obsessed with everything, reading everybody on the American Gulag side. I would pull up everybody I would find out who the judges were. I studied every single judge, every single case. And so at the end of the day, our attorneys, like I said, Holly's was really good. Like he was on top of things. He would communicate with her. She'd text him, he'd text back. She'd call him, he'd call back. My guy was like, man, it was like pulling teeth to try to get him to respond to anything that I was trying to get, or questions.
So did you use them all the way through to the end?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All the way through. And and it was the same thing. I mean, they were giving us guidance of like, yes, you have the right to a free or a fair and speedy trial, but you don't want to push that. Whatever the prosecution asks.
Why don't I want to push that? You don't want to push that. You don't want to make these guys mad. You just do what they say, dude. You do not want to make these guys mad. You don't know what they could do to you.
Yeah, and that's what we're like, okay.
Don't buck the system. Don't buck. It's like, whose side are you on? What is going on here?
My experience with the courts was, again, it was a traffic ticket. Like, okay, I have no idea, like no clue to what we're in for. So we got a 9-month crash course in legal theory through the whole thing, and knowing, and I'm reading the Constitution, going, we have the right to a fair and speedy trial in front of our peers and all this. And I'm like, this isn't happening. Like this isn't. They're like, no. If you don't do this, if you push it and you don't give them what they want, they're going to give you what you want, and then you're going to go to jail.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah, no kidding. So we've got, let's kind of get wrapped up here real quick. So you ended up taking the plea deal. What was the sentence that was ultimately imposed?
So we got 30 days home confinement. We got
and a raid on your house. I mean, that's great. They did get the beanie though. They got the beanie and the shirt,
and computers, and all that. They got. So then there was a $510, well, the $500 restitution, $10 court fee fine. So that double that by two. So that was $1,020 of restitution. We had 60 hours of community service, which I coach soccer, so I turned in my paycheck and I just said, hey, I'm going to volunteer for a month. So inside of that 30 days of home confinement, I volunteered for my soccer club for 60 hours. So I got that knocked out of the way. And then we had the 36 months probation, which again, you can't, I mean, you could stay in Western Washington, but you can't go any north of, the Canadian border all the way to Vancouver. And if you decided to go over to Yakima, you had to ask permission. We had to pee in cups. We had to, do all of that every 6 months. So it was like, it was, you know what was funny? So this year, on January 6th of this year, they had never come by the house, right? So January 6th, before the pardon, we get a call. I get a call in the morning from my probation officer, and he's like,
Hold on a second. They're upset. They're upset at the story.
Maybe they should have been passing out cups at the Capitol building.
Okay, hold on. So January 6th, a probation officer came by. And then what happened?
So he comes in and checks out our place, make sure like we don't. And the funny thing is, Taylor, so one of the weird things that happened at our sentencing, really weird. So, and we had Dabney Friedrich. So Dabney is a Trump appointed judge, and she was fair, but still was, because she's in line for the Supreme Court. She definitely is. I mean, she's young, she's pretty, she is married to a very deep state guy. So her husband is the head counsel of United Healthcare. Oh. And I mean, he's a part of the WEF, World Economic Forum, the Trilateral Commission. Like I said, I looked at everybody.
Yeah, I mean, these folks, proof of point. His judge, husband, CEF, like Trilateral Commission. Yeah, no, federal district judge. Perfect person. Perfect. So perfect resume.
So she can't be too harsh, but she can't be, too lenient. So she sticks us right in the middle. And and by the way, my attorneys thought we were going to jail. The way she was talking, it was like, and then I read my 7-page apology and basically threw myself down and begged for mercy. And so she gives us this sentence. And then at the very end, she goes, is there a reason why Mr. and Mrs. Christensen can't have their firearms back? And the prosecutor goes, we never asked for it. Like, I never even brought it up ever. It was weird. And the prosecutor goes, she was as dumb as a box of rocks anyways. And then she I don't know. And she's like, well, I'm going to allow them to have their firearms back. And I'm like, what? I mean, we only had like 3 handguns and a shotgun. And it's like, so later that very day, I went over to our landlords who's been holding on to our weapons, and I went and got them immediately. Yeah. And then, on all that probationary stuff, there's always that firearm line, but I didn't tell them anything. I just hit them, and I was like, dude. So anyways, I was hanging on that Second Amendment hard. But yeah, so like that was that. And again, on our probation, it was just this, being on probation. I mean, I literally did everything you can do, like on house arrest, they allow you to go to work. I still coach soccer. Yeah. They would allow us 2 hours a week to go grocery shopping, how, kind of them. So that was our 2-hour date night. So to hurry up and go to Costco and Walmart, get all of our groceries, come back home.
This is so now that the pardon came through, so you guys got the pardon, you obviously saw it happen, so you probably pretty much living your life free on the 21st, get confirmation. What's changed? Do you feel like anything tangibly has changed other than, you're just off all the probation, or is it mostly just a weight off your chest?
It's just the weight. I mean, it's the satisfaction of knowing, like I told you, I've done my own personal FBI background check. It's incorrect. It says that, for your involvement in the riots. So it reads, it doesn't say parading, demonstrating, misdemeanor. It says a misdemeanor. but it doesn't give specifics. In fact, it gives the wrong
Yeah,
specifics.
all my BOP paperwork said, participant in the assault on the nation's capital or something like that. I was like,
And that's not what you were charged with.
nah, not really. But you find out. I have no expectations from these people.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, they're going to do what they're going to do. All right, Scott, we need to wrap up. I need to.
Yeah.
Hey, it was so great getting a hold of you and talking. We got to do this again.
Yes, absolutely, man. I love it.
Okay, so where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Oh,
I don't want anybody.
Where can they find me?
I don't want to be.
what is even? I don't even know what my Instagram. Hold on, let me look. Instagram. It's kind of funny because I did Cloak and Dagger, just trying to keep. So my Instagram. Oops. Is Scott Christensen, Scott at Mosaic,
Scott at
Scott
Mosaic.
AT Mosaic, MOSAIC, and then on Facebook. And I never was kicked off those platforms, by the way. I know some people were, but I wasn't. So Scott Christensen on Facebook,
Great.
Puyallup.
Okay. So go find him there and follow his story. And obviously, our listeners, follow us at peasantsperspective.com. And don't forget to visit leftbehindwithout.org and see how you can help the kids. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks,
I really
brother.
appreciate it.
Man.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.